Ford Story, Zoom Lion Storage, etc. I'm referring to the man Manasseh Azuri Awuni. He's in the studio this afternoon. Manasseh,
My brother,
how are you doing?
by the grace of God, I'm doing very well.
It's a pleasure to have you this afternoon on this show.
I'm happy to be here too.
Yes. Let's look at your personality. Look at the things that you have done. You are an undercover journalist, an investigative journalist. What is your motivation? What has always motivated you? What has driven you into this area of journalism?
I won't also call it by mistake. I think it was a grand plan of God to get me into this profession. Because when I completed senior high school, that's Cratchit Senior High School in 2004, the following year in 2005, I applied to the University of Education, the University of Cape Coast to do BCom, Business, Bachelor of Business Commerce. And I didn't get admission. So whilst I was waiting to reapply the following year, I met a man one morning. I was by then working at a GS guest house as a caretaker of the guest house. And I had a lot of work to do, washing of bed sheets, cleaning the rooms, toilets and everything. But during my spare hours, I would write short articles and put them on the notice board. So the PRO of the GS saw my writings and he told me one morning, you write so well, why don't you go and do journalism? And I said, well, I didn't do general arts, I did business, because I didn't know that if one did not have general arts background, they could be accepted in the journalism school. So he told me that it didn't matter the course I read, but if only I satisfied the criteria, I would be taken. So I applied, and that's how come I became a journalist in the first place. So I got into journalism mainly because if I had gotten admission, I may have come into it, but it wasn't something I thought about. Sometimes I speak to some people, they tell you when I was young, I always wanted to be this or that. I didn't know of the Ghana Institute of Journalism until that day.
Okay.
When I got in there, and even when the form, a part of the form requires one to write why one wants to go to the Ghana Institute of Journalism. And my reason was that I wanted to be a writer, and I was going there to sharpen my writing skills. And I got in there, started writing, joined the school's newspaper. When the newspaper collapsed, I decided to be writing on the A4 sheets. I'll publish them and put them on the notice board. And I had Miss then Lucius Bao, he's in Y here, he was my classmate.
Yeah.
And James Donko, who was also here. James was doing the diploma and we're doing the degree, so we were together then. Then they would tell you how I used to write a lot and put them on the notice board and on trees for students to read. So it was writing until I completed and started doing developmental stories and human rights and human interest stories.
Okay.
I would go to the villages and all of that. So I actually started working as a full-time journalist in November 2012. So
Okay.
this will be my 5th year.
Okay.
But all these awards you mentioned, I won them even before I worked full-time. Because
yeah.
because on weekends I would take some camera and go to the rural areas to file stories. But investigative reporting, I went into it when I joined Joy FM in 2012.
Okay.
Immediately after the election, that was January thereabout, somebody saw me and said he had a tip off for me. So we met and he gave me some information to the effect that some officials, district coordinators of the then called GIDA, Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Development Agency, backed by some officials at the head office, were finding ways of siphoning money and paying themselves, siphoning money from the accounts of GIDA in the districts. And so I decided to follow up that story, and it led me to a bigger scandal involving hundreds of millions of cedis I got to know how deep companies like Zoom Lion, RLG, Asuntaba, Better Ghana, and all those companies were all making so much money from the youth employment program. And that was the first time, for instance, I heard about the fact that these workers who sweep the streets for Zoom Lion, they're actually employed by the state, paid by the state, but the contract says the state should give 500 Ghana cedis per person at the end of the month to Zoom Lion. And that Zoom Lion should pay them 100 cedis and keep 400 cedis per person as management fees. And I thought that was outrageous and exploitative. And so I decided to go deeper and do that story. And it wasn't my intention to focus or go into investigative reporting, but the success of the Jida story told me or reinforced my belief that one person can make a difference.
Okay.
So I decided to spend more time doing investigation. So that's a journey from not knowing what to do in life, because as far as journalism is concerned, because it wasn't part of my dreams when I completed senior high school. I wanted to be a bank manager, and today here I am.
Then ended up as an investigative journalist. Now, let's see that story 2013, Zoom Lion story 2013 till date. Among others, someone will ask, yes, what do you gain when you go into this? What do you stand to gain by investigating this one? Is it as a result of personal gains, or is because you have the counter attack?
Then I would have enough reason not to do these stories I'm doing or the kind of work I'm doing.
Okay.
I know the price I would have to pay for doing what I'm doing, and I know the price I will receive in terms of a reward from people if I should shut up today on a lot of the things I write about and make noise about, both on mainstream media and on social media. If it were because I told these people, well, I can help you, well, I may not do the story, and I could get houses, cars, and some of the offers that comes one's way if one decides to tackle this magnitude of corruption in our country. So it's not for personal gain, it is for the interest of this country. And I know it is very dangerous to do some of the things I do, because there are people who don't know you, who hate you so much because the businessman you are tackling is their friend, the politician you are exposing belongs to their party, and some even think that some of the stories you do would help to make their opposition or the opponents popular and help them to win elections, and they wouldn't take it lightly. So if it was for personal reasons, then I should even look at the personal danger before I even consider the rewards for even not doing those stories. But this is our country, and I can tell you, I travel to a number of countries, and you go there and you don't feel proud of what you have left behind. The only national capital I traveled to that I thought, well, Accra looks better than that capital, is Ouagadougou. I was there this April, and last year I was there when I was investigating the President's Ford story. But apart from that, you go to Abuja, you go to Nairobi, South Africa, Johannesburg, they're not to even talk of the European countries. Okay. I went to the US, visited 5 states, and the sanity with which things prevail there. You don't really see the difference between the rich and the poor. You go to the streets, very new cars, people are taking train buses, managers. So there's no much difference between the rich and the poor. But you come to our country, you're driving from the morning from East Legon towards Accra Central, you see the kinds of cars a few people drive, and the majority of people are crammed into very rickety vehicles. You find people lining up the streets, and those of us who are from this part of the country, you go to Agbogbloshie, you go to Malata markets, you go to Kumasi Abuabo, you go to those places, and our brothers and sisters are living lives that are not fit for animals, just because some people are so greedy. They steal what belongs to all of us and hoard, and some even take it out to buy properties outside. I'm not saying everybody in Ghana is a thief, but quite a number of the so-called business people. Sometimes you get to know some of the deals they end or they sign with governments, and your conclusion is that these are hardened criminals who are just destroying the system. So when you hear and see some of those things, it gets me angry, And I myself lived in abject poverty when I was growing up. My father is still a night watchman. Growing up, I was suffering from kwashiorkor. There were days you'd wake up without knowing what to eat, where your next meal would come from. And if you have lived through those terrible conditions, and you find others also living in those same conditions, not because our country is too poor to take care of us, but because we are too greedy to allow things to work well.
In case you've just tuned in, this is 98.1 Radio, who is an investigative journalist here on 98.1. I'll get back to Manasseh. Manasseh, what does one need? The young ones out there see you as a role model. They see you as someone they need to look up to be able to shape their career when it comes to journalism. What does one need to equip himself or herself in order to carry out proper or good investigative journalism?
Well,